The next concept we'll be exploring in this video is Nash equilibrium, which is also known as non-cooperative equilibrium. Now, Nash equilibrium is defined as the result when each player in a game chooses the action that maximizes his or her payoff, given the actions of other players. Now, one thing we have to realize with Nash equilibrium is that there are 4 boxes in our payoff matrix, A, B, C, and D. Now, the question is, if Nash equilibrium were to be A, we need to look at the 2 adjacent squares, which are B and C, never the diagonal square, which is D. And we consider whether each player would want to relocate to B or either C. And if neither player wants to move to a different square, then that original square, which is in this case A, would be considered a Nash equilibrium. For instance, to determine whether box D would be a Nash equilibrium, we look at boxes B and C and whether either player would want to move. Now let's take a look at a more friendly example between 2 individuals and their payoff matrix. Now, in this situation, if this were to be the Nash equilibrium, we need to consider whether either individual A or B would want to move to an adjacent square. And they wouldn't want to because obviously 1 is a better outcome for them than 0. And the same is when it's this square, where it's 3, 3, because neither individual would want to move to an adjacent square. Therefore, in this situation, there would be 2 Nash equilibriums. And you may wonder if that's possible, but I would like to tell you that it is. In fact, there can be no Nash equilibrium, there can be 1 Nash equilibrium, or even 2 Nash equilibriums, the tendency where players will head towards. Now, looking at another example here, we have Bill and Mr. Miller, and they can choose whether they want to eat donuts. To determine whether this square is a Nash equilibrium, let's look at Bill, whether he will want to move to either 7 or 8. Now, 7 and 8 are both better options than 5, which is why this square cannot be a Nash equilibrium. But let's look at this square. Now, would Bill, with the choice of 8, want to move to either 5 or 9? And in this situation, yes, he would want to move to 9, which is why this would also not be a Nash equilibrium. Next, we have this square, 8, 7. Now, Bill has 7 choices, or 7 donuts, or 8 donuts to choose from. Now, would he want to move to 9 or 5? And in this situation, Bill would want to move to 9, which is why this cannot be a Nash equilibrium. And finally, for here, would either Bill or Mr. Miller want to move to an adjacent square? Well, for Bill, 9 is the best option compared to 7 or 8, which is why he wouldn't want to move. But for Mr. Miller, however, he would want to move to different squares, like 8 or 6, which are better options for him than 2, which is why this cannot be a Nash equilibrium, and therefore, in this situation, there is no Nash equilibrium. To further explore more examples, please review our worksheet, where Mr. David Che will be explaining more about practice problems. Thank you.